maybe a closer step to freedom. And then we look across the world and see what happened in Libya, where a brutal dictator has opened up machine gun fire on his own people. Yesterday in New Zealand, they were hit by an earthquake, which the death toll there is rising. And great sadness there in their second largest city in New Zealand. And of course, things really hit home again for a tragedy in St. Petersburg last evening. The St. Pete Times reported about the officer being shot, and then during the evening, morning hours, he died. And obviously, it saddens the whole community when tragedy hits us so close to home. And also, I certainly want to offer our condolences to J.C. Brock on the passing of his father. And that was a beautiful obituary in the paper about your father and his contributions to this community. And I guess there's unfortunately, he's up there welcoming another safety police officer that he used to work, where he used to work, up in heaven with them. And so it's a time where we, of great emotions across the world. And we gather today for our board meeting to handle the business of this college in the best way we possibly can, and to do the right thing for our students as we affect this community. So I'd ask you all to please stand at this time, and in that backdrop, Deborah, I've been kind enough to agree to deliver the prayer.
First of all, I just ask them to take a moment of silence and for J.C. Mr. James Brock, and also for Officer Crawford, who was killed last night. Oh, most gracious and honorable God, we thank you for the day. We thank you for safe travels to this place. This morning, Lord, we ask that we pray for our community to make sure that we are all safe. We pray for all the officers' families who have lost someone. More importantly, Lord, we pray for the college. We pray for leadership and guidance, that we are a helping hand to as many people as we can be in our entire community. Lord, we ask for healing. We ask for people to come together and unite and move forward in a positive manner. We pray for our board. We pray for our college. We pray for the leadership of this college. We pray for our administrators, our teachers, our professors, and even our students. We all are providing a solid foundation for the future of our community. So we say a special prayer this morning again for the officer that was killed last night, and also for Mr. James Brock and his family. In Jesus' name, who I pray, and in whose name you may pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You know, I'm so proud of this board and the tradition which was established way before most of us joined. It may have been a tradition established when Dick was first on the board, that we do begin our meeting with a prayer. And hopefully that's a tradition which will live a long time here at St. Petersburg College with the way we open our board meeting. Stan, it's certainly nice to be on the Clearwater campus. Is Susan Demers here today?
No. Susan's not her father.
Oh. Yes, Judge Demers' dad.
Well, welcome you here. You can see this is a wonderful room that's been fashioned for us by our facilities crew, and they've done a great job putting this together. It probably makes a much better courtroom than it does a boardroom. We had to struggle a little bit to get seating for everyone and get all of our AV connected, but it's a great room, and we're very pleased to have it. The facilities crew is always supportive of us and does a good job. And as you look around the campus, you'll see a couple of things underway. Fencing around the teaching auditorium, which we hope to bring down very soon and begin work on our social science building. And someday, when that's completed, this building will go away. We're very honored to have you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stan. We have a retirement resolution.
You do, Mr. Chairman. Join me. Why don't we just assemble in the front? I'd like to ask Alice DeLuca and her family and friends to come forward.
You may approach the bench. Come on in. Come on in.
We've got lots of family and friends. Hold on, let me take a picture first. That's okay. We need to get on with the chairman. All right, let me do my part. Whereas Alice DeLuca began her career at St. Petersburg College, formerly St. Petersburg Junior College, in 1979 in a 6-month grant position as a clerical assistant under Dr. Calvin Harris in the women's program. And whereas Alice possesses outstanding skills as a transcriptionist, a resource that became highly valued and widely utilized in various departments, including education and student services and the nursing program, as well as the president's office. And whereas Alice received a well-deserved promotion in 1983, allowing her to move into the Facility Services Department, providing outstanding staff support for the director. The growth of the Tarpon Springs campus created a need for her experience at that campus. And whereas Alice loyally served the Facilities Department in Tarpon Springs for the past 15 years and supported various plant supervisors during that period, and whereas Alice is always ready to lend a helping hand, gets along well with everyone, and has been a valuable asset to the college, and whereas Alice has a friendly spirit and a caring heart, we wish her well in her retirement as she and her husband John head to O'Brien, Florida for the next chapter in her life, that of being a rural farmer. She will be dearly missed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the St. Petersburg College Board of Trustees and the total college community hereby recognize and appreciate the outstanding contributions of Alice DeLuca and extend to her our best wishes for enjoyment throughout the years ahead. Said resolution being adopted and approved by the Board of Trustees, St. Petersburg College, this 22nd day of February 2011. Congratulations.
Husband in this picture too, here.
Come on over here. Good, there we go. Well, now I know why Calvin Harris looks so good. Okay, now I see how he got his career launched. All set? Thank you. Congratulations.
I never heard that one either.
Ed ran through the fight.
Oh, wow. You get there from here. Good to see you. Okay. Nice to meet
Live
you.
oak area.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Alice. I do want to point out, Susan Reiner noted that part of the resolution, you received a promotion from the President's Office of Facilities. She, there's hope. Is there a motion to accept the resolution?
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Mr. President, you have an introduction?
I'd like to pass the floor to Company Carney. Yes. He'll handle the details here.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm delighted to present to you this morning Victoria Cook as the new director of the Negro Rap Museum. I also present her to the college family who's here as well. Victoria comes to us with a wealth of experience in museum management. She has worked at the Louisiana State University Museum of Art in the university environment. We're very happy with that. She worked there for 3 years. She worked at the New Orleans Museum of Art for about 10 years, so she has a wealth of museum experience. She also brings to us experience in the accreditation process. You may recall that one of our strategies for the museum is to achieve American Association Museum accreditation. She's gone through that process completely with the Louisiana State University. It was one of the 3 museums that got approved for accreditation in 2010. She has a beautiful academic background. She has 3 baccalaureate degrees and a master's degree as well in art history, as well as she's completed all of the doctoral work for art history as well. So, and she also has grants and research and fundraising abilities as well. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and college family, I present to you Victoria Cook.
and talking to people about ways we can engage the students and use the museum more as a classroom, as well as presenting exciting exhibitions and programs. So I hope to see y'all all at the museum soon, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Copperly. I also want to point out, I want to thank Mrs. Bilirakis for serving as our board liaison to the Lieber-Ratner Museum. We certainly appreciate your service, Evelyn. If it's fine with the board, since the area of comments and some of the monthly reports may go on a little bit today, can we go out of order? And we have a special guest with us. We have the very capable and able principal from Gibbs High School, who's with us today. And I know Dr. Law and Watson Haynes, you want to give a special introduction here. But all I need to know about him is that he's Myrtle Williams' son-in-law. And that's good enough, I think, for most of us in the room as far as qualifications. But, Mr. President, do you want to make...
Yes, I'm delighted to have it. This was an item that we had on the agenda last month, and we wanted to take some time. Trust me, when the dust settles, we'll be talking that Myrtle is his mother-in-law.
Uh-oh.
He's destined for really important things. And
that's a big accomplishment.
He will be it. As many of you know, it's something that has taken on a life of its own, but we're very proud of our work, trying to reestablish how a good local community college and our state college works with its constituent high schools, especially high schools that have particular needs. A door opened for us early this year with some challenges being thrown at Kevin in his new role at Gibbs High School. Kevin and I, through the good offices of some civic leaders, had a chance to meet before this event. Kevin, as you will find out, is very impressive, and he impressed me. We talked about ways the college could help Kevin achieve the goals he needs to, and I think once we opened the door, it was really a lot of people rushing through the door to help us. I'd like Kevin and Watson to describe just some of the technical parts. I think we have a little bit of a presentation, and then Mr. Chairman will wrap up with the follow-up where we go next, okay? And that's very important. So who we pass it to? Kevin, is that going to be you or Watson?
We'll do the presentation first.
Good enough. Okay.
Marsha, can we hit the lights back there?
Yeah.
Please. Thanks.
I'm Mike Davis, Gibbs High School, 2011, graduated student, and I plan to attend the University of Florida.
Today is a very special day. I'm here to talk about the partnership with Gibbs High School and St. Petersburg College. So Dr. Jansen, good morning. Good morning. What do you think is the greatest benefit to the Gibbs students from the partnership between the SPC and the Gibbs High School?
Well, number one, I think this is really exciting that it was a joint effort. It wasn't one, person trying to, or one group trying to start the initiative. So the greatest benefit to me is that we've come together, the adults, the community, and the students together to offer more opportunities for students in high school to get college credit, to get the support they need to be successful in those college classes.
Okay. How do you hope this partnership will grow throughout the next 5 years?
I think as we build, we will find that more and more of our students are going to be graduating from Gibbs and other high schools that the college has agreed to partner with AA degrees, or even a bachelor's degree if they have the capacity in their schedules and time of days to really take as many high school and college credits as they need, while offering those students that don't want to only go on beyond an AA, but maybe get some industry certification as well.
What I'm hoping that the students will gain is that it'll give them more opportunities. It'll get them to thinking, hey, you know what, maybe I can't go to college. You know what, maybe I can look at expanding my horizons. No one else may have gone to college, but maybe I can try it. Maybe I can try one of these dual classes. And then for the community, dispel the rumors and myths about whatever they heard heard about Gibbs that just really is not true, and that's what it's all about.
So how are you hoping this partnership will grow throughout the next 5 years?
Well, I'm hoping that over the next 5 years that we're able to offer more dual enrollment courses, we're able to provide scholarships, hopefully for kids, that we're able to get kids thinking early as ninth grade about college, and really getting them focused on education and knowing that there's somewhere else for them to go after high school.
We're hoping to gain 8 some college credits, which will save them money when they get ready to go to college, because the more college credits you have while you're in high school, the less money you have to pay after you get out of high school. The other is we're hoping to increase the students' knowledge so they can explore other educational opportunities and achieve.
Okay, and what are you hoping the faculty gain?
We're hoping the faculty will really increase their knowledge of teaching skills, teaching strategies, how to work better with students based on what we do at the college. And that equips them that maybe eventually they want to be college teachers.
The second video that you're about to see came after, and I think Wilma Norton was the better person to talk about it. Oh, there she is. Wilma will talk about how this one came about before it starts.
Well, Watson invited me to come down and talk with a group of students that had been pulled together by some of the faculty who were concerned about the image that Gibbs had and wanted to look for ways that they could promote both the partnership with the college and also just that their school wasn't the school that was being portrayed in the community. And they talked about how they were in Panera one day wearing shirts that said Gibbs High, and a woman came up and said, "Do you go to Gibbs?" And they said, "Yes, we do," proudly, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And that they wanted to find some means to get the message out that there's a whole lot more to Gibbs than this F grade that everyone was talking about. So we brainstormed some ideas, and this, with the help of Jeremy Peplow and NFL in our videography department, this is what they came up with.
I'm Mike Davis, Gibbs High School 2011 graduating senior. And I plan to attend the University of Florida, where I will become a periodontist with a master's in science. I'm a member of the National Honor Society. I'm a member of Student Rights and Responsibility. I am here.
My name is Julianne Baker. I'm a PCCA freshman in musical theater. I plan on going to Young Harris College in North Carolina. I hope to be studying in music and marketing. I hope you see me on the stage someday.
My name is Michael Peabody, and I'm a junior at Gibbs High School's Beta program, and also dually enrolled in SPC. I am junior class president, and I'm part of 10 different organizations here on campus. I aspire to go to Harvard to study political science and education. You are looking at a future U.S. Senator.
Hello, my name is Daniel Thrasher. I'm a senior musical theater major at the Pinellas County Center for the Arts at Gibbs High School. After graduation, I want to direct feature films, so you might see one of my films someday.
My name is Lauren Lord. I'm in 10th grade in the Beta program. I'm sophomore class president and on the committee of student rights and responsibilities. I also play volleyball. After I graduate from high school, I plan to attend BAMU, in which I will major in business and finance. I aspire to be an accountant.
My name is Abby. I'm a senior at Gibbs High School, and when I graduate, I like to achieve my writing career.
My name is Garrett Simon. I attend Gibbs High School, and I play basketball varsity number 23. When I leave here from Gibbs High School, I plan on going to Florida University, and you will see me on the basketball court.
My name is Jessica Sarah. I'm a junior in the Beta program. I also take classes with SPC. I am student body president, and after graduation, I plan to attend the University of Miami and become a lawyer.
My name is Sharice Gamage. I'm a Gibbs High School student and the SPC student. I plan to attend the University of Miami with a law and business administration degree.
My name is Ryan Kendrick. I'm a sophomore in the technical theater program at Gibbs High School. I plan on attending USITT College and later producing films and movies.
I'm Terrell Dukes. I'm a senior at Gibbs High School. I'm in the Beta program, and I'm on the varsity football team. When I graduate, I plan on attending the United States Army, and I am Gibbs High School.
I am Gibbs.
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 And this is St. Petersburg Gibbs High School.
Good morning. Good morning. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the support of Dr. Law and his staff as they partner with us at Gibbs High School. As you can see from the video, it's an awesome cross-section of the students that we serve at Gibbs High School. And it's very representative of what happens at the school. There's the arts, there's technology, there's business, and then there's regular education. There's something for any student that walks through the door at Gibbs High School. And despite what may or may not have been said in the newspaper, it's an awesome place to be. I can't imagine any kid going to Gibbs High School and just not having an awesome experience there. And the great thing about the experience that they can have there now is that we have a partnership with St. Pete College where we're able to offer dual enrollment classes. We're able to offer kids an opportunity to get X amount of college credits before they graduate. No other high school can do that on their campus right now, so we're really excited about that. The other strength of the partnership is the professional development that we're able to offer to our teachers. The partnership with the staff at St. Pete College where they're actually bringing their expertise on and helping us to tackle some of the challenges that we have at Gibbs High School. We're no longer F school, we're excited about that, but there's still an awful lot of work that has to be done in the school. We still have work to do in terms of raising the overall reading achievement of students. So we look forward to this partnership continuing, using the expertise of St. Pete College to train our teachers to be more proficient in the classroom and then helping our kids to excel and really begin to think about college. A lot of our students that we serve come from homes of poverty, where college probably is the last thing on their list. But hopefully through this partnership they'll begin to think about it, they'll see it, they'll hear it, and they'll feel it. And they'll dream big, they'll dream about college and what that can offer them in their life. And I'm just thankful for Dr. Law, Mr. Haynes, and all of the St. Pete College staff in assisting us in making that happen for kids.
Good morning. Jeff Sesta, I work with the dual enrollment program. I would just like to echo what Kevin mentioned. We tested over 500 students at Gibbs High School back in the fall, and as a result, we have 7 dual enrollment courses now with over 150 students enrolled. So, as Dr. Jansen mentioned in the video, our goal is to expand this partnership and to roll these types of classes out in other high schools in South County and eventually make our way to North County. So it's been a team effort. Gibbs has been a wonderful school to work with, and we really look forward to expanding that partnership. Obviously, we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Just in summary, I want to first of all thank Dr. Law for his vision going to Gibbs High School. I think it's certainly thank you all for your support. And one of the things is staff. When we started this process, you know, when you reach out to people, you don't know what they're going to say. They could say, I'm too busy, don't have enough time, don't want to drive that far. St. Petersburg College, hands-on today, and that's not some of the future things we have. Hands-on today, we've had 53 employees of St. Petersburg College involved in the Gibbs High project. 53. And on the school board side, with the people from the district, another 22. So we've had 75 people involved in making this work. Kevin's modest about the grade. They had a C grade, 6 points away from a B. We're in there until they make an A, and then we'll move to the next school. We've got 2 things rolling out. One in March, we have a career day where every career and certificate program offered at St. Petersburg College will be on campus the entire day. Every student will go through that career day, talk to the booth, talk to the person at the booth, get information about our programs, and some may even be at the point of enrolling in some of our career programs. We're just excited about this, and we just thank you for your support and the support of so many folks that's even sitting in this room who not only send emails, send staff, bend over backwards to make this happen. And so I thank you. I thank Kevin, who has a dynamic team. Any one of the persons on here that's his vice president could run that school. And we know that they're not going to be that long for a fact. And thank Jeff Sesta, because Jeff has been my lean-on guy. I could call Jeff and say, how do I get through this? How do we make it happen? And he just shows up at the meeting to make things happen. I'm just real pleased with this project, and I know that it's reached well of St. Petersburg College and our commitment. It was just not on paper. It's reality.
First of all, I want to thank all of y'all for being here today, and especially you, Mr. Gordon. It's certainly a pleasure to have you at our board meeting. I know Devron knows you, but I've only seen you through the newspaper. It's quite impressive that the work you're doing at Gibbs High School. And let me tell you, this board has more than just a passing interest in Gibbs High School, and that's because one of our dear beloved board members for many years here is a former principal, was a former principal at Gibbs High School, Cecil Keene. And Cecil's a person that we all admire on this board greatly. So we have a legacy issue there too, that we expect great things out of Gibbs High School because we know that Cecil Keene has his watchful eye over the high school. And so best wishes to you, and I know other board members either have questions or comments, or even Mr. Johnson.
Just a question, and maybe Dr. Law, you may be the one to coordinate this through. We have 2 programs, Women on the Way and Men on the Way, and are they involved in this, or should they be involved in this?
I see them listed, and I don't know the exact level of people. Watson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Men on the Way, that program actually has identified about 20 to 30 students at Gibbs High School, and they're actually going to be coming to All-State Center very soon to talk about some issues. We've been involved in the males. We have not done the females yet, and that's one of the issues we will tackle. But Men on the Way, the Men Achieving Excellence program is in your report.
Okay. I've had a chance to read it. Thank you, Watson.
It's not in your old report. So
Mrs. Bilirakis, do you have any questions?
Well, I just want to, very impressed. I want to congratulate Dr. Law for coming up with the idea. I think this is a project that might work at other places too, in the whole country. It could be a model.
I just want to thank Mr. Gordon for being here at our last meeting. You should have heard this guy talk about you and how impressed he is with your talents. And I think Nellis County Schools very, very fortunate to have you. Thank you. And your leadership. And Mr. Haynes, Mr. Sesta, you had made a comment about maybe moving on to another school after you got Gibbs up to an A. Do you have a short list? You don't have to share it, I just.
Yeah, I don't want to share it because
Okay.
the superintendent gives me a name and the assistant
Got it.
superintendent gives me a name. So I just stay out of it. I said, that's Dr. Long.
I'm sure there are people on the list.
They are called. They call me, they talk to Dr. Long, they talk to Kevin. They tried all creative ways of trying to get us at the other campus without us.
That's a good thing.
Yes,
All
yes.
right, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Mr. Gibbons?
Thank you all for coming, especially because I really appreciate all your hard work. Let me say this, I know a lot of people in the audience and on the board get tired of me saying every month that our focus needs to be on Midtown in a lot of ways. Here is a success story that we are involved in and changing lives every day in Midtown. And I have to just say this, Kevin Gordon has hired Ruben, I remember Ruben's last name. Ruben Hepburn, Robin Mobley, and Nicole Davis as his assistant principals. And Mr. Haynes was exactly right that on any given day, Mr. Gordon can be off campus and it will run like a well-oiled machine. But we should pat ourselves on the back. This is something that is a blueprint. I remember when Watson, myself, and some other folks were involved with the mayor's mentors and more, and the partnerships that we have with the elementary schools. And one thing that we didn't do, and I want to remind you that we need to do this, is write down what we did to make this work so that when we go to other schools, we have a plan in place. And we have a document in place that we can move forward on the other campuses. Now, all of them are going to be very different because the programs are different. But I just want to say we need to make sure that we have a plan in place. This is how we will stop the nonsense that happened last night in Midtown and other places. By getting these kids and young people at an early age and making sure they have hope to move forward. This is exactly why we need, and this board voted unanimously a month ago, to expand our efforts in Midtown as a college. So maybe in the summer times when you need a place or other high schools need a place to hold classes when we're not as busy, that we can have summer camps in Midtown. But this is how we stop the violence and other things, that we provide an opportunity and hope. And Kevin, Watson, Sesta, I can't say enough. And we should applaud our entire staff, especially Dr. Law and other folks, because we're doing this is our mission. This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to guide young people of all races, creeds, ethnicities to college. Now, I'm glad to see that you have a bunch going to the University of Florida. I saw Mr. Lang's face over there. You know, I see you got them going the right direction, Kevin. But you should also know that, Kevin Gordon is a product of Pinellas County Schools, and I know where his heart is. We should continue to support that. I would say 100% this board, if there's anything that we can do, Kevin, I'm sure that you will have our full blessing and support. Not only that, we want to finish this before we move on to somewhere else. We want Gibbs to be an A consistently before we move on to somewhere else. Not just because it's in Midtown, but because of the unique history that Gibbs has had. Like there are other predominantly African-American high schools that started in Orlando Jones and other schools that have a rich history. And we need to make sure that this school is successful, you're successful there. And I know you have my full support, but I'm sure you have the chairman's support and the rest of this board. As you already saw, Dr. Law, this is his thing. He knows how to do this kind of stuff, and that's why we brought him here, because he really gets it and understands it. But the staff, you all should be commended because you are a big part of this effort, and you're the reason that Gibbs High School is doing well, because of the partnership between the college and because of the expertise that is on that campus. We just want to get it right, Kevin, and then we'll move on somewhere else. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons, for your comments, and we never get tired of your advocacy. So I applaud you for it.
These lanyards that you have, we recommend the kids that we buy shirts, and they say, we don't do t-shirts anymore, and lanyards. And so lanyards were given to every student at Gibbs High School when we rolled this project out. And so back in September, we were engaged to Gibbs High School. This partnership created a marriage last month at Gibbs High School on this project. So we're there. We're too early for divorce.
No divorce. I just want to say one last comment. I can't let talking about Gibbs High School without mentioning your fine arts program, and that's something which brings so much pride to the entire county. And I'm a theater buff, so I've been there to see Ragtime 2 years ago, and the great play y'all did last year, which I can't remember the name, but your students are just amazing, not only on stage, but with the entire production, the costuming and everything. They do a magnificent job, and I know that's just one example of the fine arts program at Gibbs High School, but I know you're keeping the momentum of that program going while you're doing everything else, and that's to be applauded. Dr. Long, do you want to close us out, please?
Yeah, two things. I wanted to, I was going to mention that when we were in Tallahassee, Senator Steve Wise from Jacksonville, who chairs the Senate Education Committee, had sent me a note and asked me to come by his office early in the morning to walk him through what we were doing. So I had a private meeting with him to outline those kinds of things. We do intend to document everything we're doing, and it is my intention to particularly in the dual enrollment, the early testing, move that out. If we can find a way to do that in 2, maybe 3 additional high schools for this fall, we'll go ahead and do that. That's a big step, is to test the students early so they know the right math to take in 11th grade and 12th grade. They then are college ready. Many can take college courses. So we're going to start, as soon as we know exactly what, we'll get moving, but expect us to get to a couple more high schools in the immediate future. Precious building.
Maybe we should put a testing lab in our midtown.
Or maybe the state should give us some funding.
I'll work on that, Mr. Chairman.
The big surprise for me, I don't know what the quality of the facilities is outstanding. We offered to build a lab, and Kevin said, no thanks, we're all set, okay? I mean, they have wonderful facilities.
You know, Dr. Law, I know that they're being pulled in every direction, but the Gates Foundation needs to come down and look at this.
We'll see if we can reach out to them.
I mean, that, you know, we need someone with some bucks behind this to make this happen. Thank you so much, unless y'all have any closing comments.
No, just that this is not all we have. Deborah Boyle has every piece of maybe communication and all that's been going on in the Gibbs project, so that we can make sure that we're stay connected. So while we have some things, she actually has, and she's been a great resource to us.
I do have one final comment.
Yes,
we also have a great basketball team. We're playing tonight at 7 o'clock in the Northeast Regional Semifinals. We win 2 more games to go to state finals.
Great. Mr. Porter, which high school did you graduate from?
Gibbs High School.
Okay, well, and thank you, board, for that consideration of moving that item out of our agenda order. Under comments, and I'm going to ask the board to join me as part of my report, because basically this past month was probably, since I've been on the board since 1999, had the most activities I ever remember for trustees to essentially attend. And I just want to go through them real quickly, and then we'll ask board members to make comments on them, because I didn't want to leave any out, and I want to make sure all got commented on, because all were quite significant. And I may have the order out of line, but bear with me. Friday, after our last board meeting, our president appeared before the Tiger Bay Club. We then went to the St. Pete Chamber of Commerce luncheon as part of the St. Petersburg College 2 tables where the governor spoke. Our president appeared before the Leadership St. Pete Alumni Association, which was hosted on our downtown campus. A group of us went to Tallahassee to lobby our state legislature and to meet with key education leaders there. We also went to the National Legislative Summit in D.C., meeting with 3 of our congressmen and one of our United States senators. I had the honor of appearing before the Distance Learning Conference at the St. Pete Beach to welcome them. And I know 2 of you attended, on behalf of the board, the basketball game on our St. Pete Gibbs campus. I mean, that's a lot of activities since our last board meeting for this board. I'm sure I did.
The Mac J. Williams Awards were at the Seminole campus, and Dr. Paul and myself attended that on Friday night. And our speaker was Watson Haynes.
Excellent. And also, in that time, Dick Johnston's been representing us on the foundation board for the selection process of a new director. So, Tiger Bay. Deborah, you were there. You want to start with that?
It was great. Dr. Dr. We were doing this all day. Dr. Law did a phenomenal job. I think he hit the salient points. After the Tiger Bay meeting, I think the comments were all, you guys got the right guy, and they were all phenomenal comments.
I heard those same comments after the meeting, and as a matter of fact, when the Tiger Bay, we had our annual meeting a few weeks ago on a weeknight and in the evening, and I still heard comments, people coming up to me and complimenting us on the choice. So, Dr. Law, you did the best thing a president could do. You made the board look good. So I certainly, yeah, we're getting a lot of credit for you.
Two of our faculty, both speak teachers, attended, and the grades they gave Dr. Law were A+.
And one's very critical.
But both very critical, but both gave him an A+.
And so we're just very proud of you there, Mr. Lang. You were there too at that meeting. At the chamber luncheon, I don't think there's really much to comment on there. We had a presence there. It was an excellent occasion, and having that at lunch turned out to be a real good thing. I've never been to any of the other ones, but that was certainly a nice event. And I know certainly Terry's a past chair of the St. Pete Chamber of Commerce, and had a great year of leadership. The Tallahassee trip. You want to talk about that a little bit, and we'll turn it over to Dr. Law, because I think
well, it turned into kind of a marathon in a way. Evelyn and I were assigned the job of keeping Ken awake because he drove both ways, and we didn't leave until late at night, so we had to chatter about almost nothing and everything. Be sure Ken didn't fall asleep.
But no college business. Let me point that out.
Oh no, we didn't talk about anything and everything, and what was surprising, when you leave Tallahassee at night, the deer were lined up on the side of the road, and you could see them in the headlights, and you were just fearful that they might decide to go across the road in front of you.
That's why we had a rental car.
So yeah, we kept our eyes open, but our job was to keep them. And I think in Tallahassee, there was one very challenging meeting that we had at our last, I can't get over this.
We're singing Deron on her.
Yeah, I know. And she had Don Sullivan's job, and we know how much Don Sullivan did about our baccalaureate program. And she really was coming down hard on our community college system, because some of our fellow 28 members had a gifted appearance of building dorms and football teams since it became a state college. And this had her and maybe other legislators upset. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to give her all the correct answers. But I did learn from talking with Devin later, because he introduced me to her son. He said, "Don't worry about her. I've got her fully under control." So if something goes wrong, we can blame Devin on that. But that was the one episode we got in to see Rubio's. That's not the trip. That's not true. But we spent a full 2 days on it. We drove up. We left here at 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon and got here after midnight on Tuesday night. We had a full day, and I think meeting with the legislators, they will listen to us because we don't get a paycheck. We're there because our labor of love, and they realize that. And so we pretty much got some pretty good audiences with the various legislators in Tallahassee. And I think the trip was well worthwhile, and I'm glad we delayed it on your suggestion, Mr. Chairman, for a week, because the previous week when we were supposed to go there with the rest of the 28, no one was in session.
This trip was incredibly well planned by our person in Tallahassee, Ed Woodruff, who does our government coordination. And it's extremely difficult to get the appointment scheduled that he did. And it's almost, it took an act of God to get the appointment scheduled in such a small amount of time with every key leader. We met with the Senate President. Let me tell you, and Deron certainly knows this, meeting with the Senate President during this time of year is a tough, tough appointment to make happen. And the Senate President sat there and talked with us way beyond the time we were scheduled to talk. It was just incredible. And he expressed tremendous interest. The fact that Mrs. Bilirakis and Herodopoulos, the Senate President, certainly helped matters too, I can tell you that. But he gave us all the time that we asked for. As a matter of fact, we were feeling a little guilty being respectful of his time to conclude the appointment, but he couldn't have been more courteous and more welcoming to us. And that's quite significant right there, that he listened to what we had to say and was very, not sympathetic, he understood what we're trying to do and wanted to advocate what we're trying to do. Yes, sir.
He did. I know I gave him a card, left him a card, and while I was in Washington, I got a thank you letter back from him for spending our time there. And I thought that was extremely appreciative. That means that it was meaningful to him that we were there because he thought enough to send a thank you to that.
But Senator Herodopoulos deserves credit for that appointment, because that's, again, certainly you know that, Dr. Law, up in Tallahassee. Those appointments like that are very meaningful and very hard to come by. A lot of times you don't have to be standing with them and say, here's your appointment for 5 minutes, make it quick. I mean, and it's also consideration of them. Their time is under tremendous pressure. So we met with the Senate President, which is quite significant. We met with the Senate Chairman of the Policy Committee on Education, Senator Ulrich from Gainesville. He's a Florida State alum, but represents the city of Gainesville. He's a former sheriff up there. Just a wonderful man, and more importantly, he's an alum of St. Petersburg College. And he talks about the training he got in his police program here was the most significant education training he did to do his job as sheriff. And that's quite significant. He's a good man. He sat there, listened to again, gave us all the time that we asked for there, asked pertinent questions throughout the time, and asked us some very probing questions too. Even challenged his aide on a few things as far as how things work and how. So it wasn't just let me listen to these people and get them out of my office, because you sometimes get that impression when you're up there in Tallahassee. Then we met with the policy chair in the House, which is Dr. Proctor. Dr. Proctor has very strong views on higher education. He's the former president of Flagler. He's the former athletic director interim at Florida State University. He has very strong views. He's been around a long time. He asked, it was not an easy conference with him. He asked very challenging questions. He had very definite views on how the state system and governance should be done. And he was challenged, but again, he was very respectful, and he gave us all the time that was needed for our visit. We met with the appropriations chair of the Senate in Senator Lynn. We met with her for an hour, from 5 to 6 o'clock in the evening, right before we had to drive back from Tallahassee home. If we said white, she said black. If we said black, then she said white. I think that's her technique. It's just to challenge you. Even when you start agreeing with her, then she takes the other side. It was so after a while, she wore us out. And we finally left.
She told me yesterday she really liked it.
But that was, and it's good though. Again, for the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee Chair on Higher, give us an hour of her time, and to have that type of conversation means that she wanted to talk about the issue. And so that was excellent. And we met the House Appropriations, her counterpart in the House, Representative O'Toole. And so we had that. Then we had an appointment with the governor's staff, with the assistant chief of staff. We met with the chief of staff briefly. He came in to say hello. Thanks because of his friendship with Congressman Bilirakis, who was there with us. Then we met with the person, the assistant chief of staff, who is responsibility to deal with education issues.
Carry O'Rourke.
And she handles like 5 different areas of government that are all extremely big. All of those appointments were very meaningful. Now, we did this in one day. All those appointments. And then we met with our whole Pinellas County delegation. Most were there. We had a majority there. Again, this is very hard to achieve. I mean, Everett can tell you, but he spends lots of time in Tallahassee. Getting the delegation together during committee week or during any time they're in session for a half-hour meeting is very, very difficult. And again, Ed Woodruff coordinated it where we had the majority of our 12 delegation members there. And let me tell you how it works in Tallahassee. You have these appointments set up, and let's say one's at 1 o'clock, the next one's at 1:30, one may be on the House side and the Senate side, which are opposite sides of the building. And you have to be on time for the appointment, but they're never on time. But you can't chance it to say they're going to be late meeting with us. So you run there at 1 o'clock, get there at 1 o'clock, you have your 20 minutes, and then you have to run to the other side to get to the 1:30 appointment where you just rushed as fast as you can, you're out of breath, and they tell you, sit there and wait for the 5 or 10 minutes. But it was, so it really, I don't mean to pat ourselves on the back, but it was an exhausting day because you want to be up each time too. When you're meeting with them, you don't want to say the wrong thing. You want to be careful what you say. You want to advocate in the correct manner. And you want to make sure that we're all on target here. And we were led so ably by our president. So I think that pretty much covers it, Dr. Law. What comments do you
9
have?
meetings, I just want to remember that. And let's take a second on the key element here. It's early to talk about the budget, the governor's budget that just come out. There is a significant, we believe, undercurrent that has to do with the governance and approval process of baccalaureate education.
Amen.
And our whole purpose of going was to try to get, peel back the layers of what is happening with this issue. The reality is, I think it's fair to say that some of our colleague colleges have not taken time to bring people along when they've created new programs. They've created a great deal of stress as to who's in charge of the approvals process, how do these things get done, are they worth doing, all of that. I'll say this because I'm bragging on stuff I had nothing to do. Everybody understood St. Petersburg College. People were highly respectful of the work that's been created here. When we walked in their office, they knew what we were doing. Again, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the work they came before me. But it is a serious issue. We are the big deliverer of baccalaureate education, and I remain convinced that there is a movement afoot to shift the governance parts. And although we spent a day there, nobody dispelled that notion.
Right.
I came away feeling we were on it. I'm glad we did it in February rather than wait until April or May, but we have a lot of work.
And we may have to go back.
I believe we will.
And Dr. Furlong, I want to say thank you to you because you're the one who made all this happen during that time to get the baccalaureate programs the way we're delivering them with the quality, and you oversaw that effort. Dr. Cutler deserves credit certainly too, but you were the point person and took everything from A to Z, and so we thank you. I'm saying all this because we may be asking you to come up to Tallahassee. Because you're a person of tremendous respect up there too. We're going to need your help on this battle. It's, I'll be real blunt about it. The chancellor of the university system, under the guise of being coordinating, and that's I'm here from the government. I'm here to help. He's there from the government here to help community colleges, and none of us believe that. It's a control issue. And so that's something I'm sure, Deborah, I know how effective you are, but maybe we can plan and even get on the calendar now for another trip during session where I know we won't be able to keep that same calendar during session, but at least make the key appointments that we need to make. And Dr. Furlong, if there's a chance that you can go with us, that would be helpful too. Anything further on that, Dr. Law? Yes, we moved on to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And Evelyn, you want to talk about our visit to Washington, the conference. And let me tell you, Evelyn's husband was a leader at one of our sessions. They had a pre-conference session where he trained trustees and college administrators on effective advocacy of Congress. And Congressman Villarakis led an hour session where he spoke and then entertained questions and answers. And it was a very, very effective session. He has such a modest way about him, and the way he presents was very endearing to the people in the room where they felt like they could ask real blunt questions. to him, and he gave a great conversation back and forth. So that was how we kicked off the conference. And Evelyn, you want to take it from there?
Well, I think it was a very productive for Washington. We were accepted, and they know about SPC and what we're doing.
Certainly do. Dick, you want to take it from there?
Well, I'm going to piggyback on Evelyn and Mike, because we couldn't have done a lot of things we did without them. I didn't realize Evelyn had a little pendulum on, and the pendulum was a congressman's white pendulum. And as long as you stuck close with her, nobody questioned it. Of course, no one questions Evelyn anyway. But Mike was extremely helpful, even going through security, because I got stopped with my pockets weren't clean, and Mike turned to the officer and he said, "Be with me," and he just waved me right up there and said, "Sorry, sir." But Mike took us around because he knows the place, and we met with a number of things. One thing, JC and I went back. We left our troops, I guess it was Wednesday afternoon, and JC and I found our way back from one of the House buildings back to the Rayburn building to Congressman Young's office, and then we couldn't get out of the building. We kept trying to follow other people, thinking they knew where they were going, and kept asking questions, and finally we got out on the Independence and got cabs, because he had to go back and I had to go back to the hotel. But that place is so complex, and so big, and so spread out, that JC and I just could not find what floor you get off on to go out to the ground floor, because there's too many basements. And I can imagine how it makes you question how Washington really functions when you see all that. They do have, and Mike was good enough to get us on the underground trolley that runs from the Senate to the House. It's only 4 members and staff members, I guess. And since we were neither of those, we were able to get on that. So having those two along on the trip really made it quite helpful and helped us with a lot of time.
I want to point out that the more frugal board members took the Metro back.
Yeah.
But I do want
They were just so frustrated to get out of it.
I do want to point out that substantively we had meetings with Senator Rubio's chief of staff and education director, and that was important that we expressed our concern on these federal issues, especially Pell Grants, especially on the grant that we're going to be applying for with the Department of Labor, TAI or TIA, I can never remember, TAA. Anyway, whatever the initials, the acronym are. Trade Adjustment Act, TAA. We're going to be, and making these, that known to our federal policymakers, they can help the process a little bit along. They can express their support for us on receiving this grant and watch the grant to make sure that we're treated fairly. And so that's one of the reasons we go around on these visits, because of Pell and also because of the CAA through the Department of Labor. Congressman Young had a family situation at home and had to delay his trip up there. So he wasn't, we weren't able to meet with Congressman Young, but Dick Johnston and J.C. Brock met with Congressman Young's staff. Congressman Young has always been super supportive of us, and so that's not a concern, although we did meet with him. Congressman Gus Bilirakis, of course, that was our home away from home in Congress. He made us feel so welcome in his office. I do want to point out that Congressman Bilirakis has been asked by the two national associations, the Association of Community College Trustees and the American Association of Community Colleges, to not only participate in the Congressional Community College Caucus, but to be the co-chair nationally for the caucus. And that's quite significant for our congressman representing our area here is the co-chair of the Community College Caucus. There's 160 Congress people, senators and congressmen, who are part of the Community College Caucus, and they have 2 co-chairs, one from the Senate and one from the House, and Gus Bilirakis is the House co-chair. And so at 3 o'clock, our meeting in the House included not only us in attendance, it included representatives from the two associations to officially extend the invitation to Congressman Bilirakis to be the co-chair, and he accepted before their words got out of their mouth. I think we had him primed beforehand. But he made us feel extremely welcome. We also visited Representative Castor's office. She was on the floor voting, but her chief of staff met with us, was very cooperative, has been on our campus, and that was a very successful meeting also. I do want to point out that the sessions themselves were very beneficial. They had folks from all different types of agencies as they relate on federal issues, but I want to especially point out, in Washington, a success of a conference is often measured by the type of people who speak at your conference. Who's the administration sending to be at your conference? Which members of Congress come to be at your conference? That sets, the power mode, whether you're a respected organization or not. I think it's quite significant that at our conference that the Secretary of Labor herself was there as one of the speakers. And that was significant. And she gave a substantial speech. This was not a feel-good, let me just, give you greetings from Washington. This was a substantive speech about the Department of Labor as it relates through the, and so many of the funds that we receive in grants come through the Department of Labor. They don't come, some through the Department of Education. We get more through the Department of Labor than we get through the Department of Education. So that was quite significant. I had the chance, because I'm on the executive committee of AACC, to meet her privately before. I don't want to say we had an extensive conversation. We had like a 2-minute conversation, but it was a good opportunity to have to speak with the Secretary of Labor. And that evening, the Vice President's wife, who is the community college point person in the administration, attended as a surprise. That was not known in advance. It was not part of the agenda. But Mrs. Biden came to the conference and spoke to us in the evening function. Again, very, great symbolism of her attendance there. And I had the opportunity to meet her beforehand and have my picture taken with her, which I was grateful for. The conference itself was well attended by trustees across the nation, and the right people were there. Also, the education chair for the Senate, which is Senator Bacchus from Montana, was there at our Tuesday evening event. Again, very symbolic. He's a very senior senator, one chairing the key committee, and he was there at our event. This sends a message to a lot of folks that what community colleges are doing is respected in a very tangible way by their attendance. So that's pretty much it.
Well, I just made a couple comments. Friday, the selection committee appointed by Dr. Law for the new development director, foundation development director, had a meeting in which I see Kay is here that attended. And Janice is back there too. I saw your head poke in and out from time to time. But I think we had a very good meeting. We interviewed 4 people, and as I understand, our chairman, Al May, is going to meet with Dr. Law around noon today or after this meeting and present our findings to him. But we spent considerable time, I think we had about an hour with each of the various candidates in which they made a presentation, and we went around and asked various questions of them, and I think that was very successful. Another meeting I think important to this whole group, Trevon had a textbook meeting, I'll call it, which I couldn't make because we were out of town somewhere on one of these trips, and I forget the exact date of it, but I don't know how you made out. It was originally scheduled, and the Daytona Beach man, who apparently has a real handle on this, was coming down to speak and had to cancel because he had to go to the hospital with an emergency, and I assume he showed up. And
right, Dr. Duncan coordinated that, and we had an excellent meeting.
Good. So I'm glad to hear that we're moving in that direction. Those are 2 other things.
Thank you, Dick. Go ahead.
Back to Washington. I think it was very critical that when we talked to these members, that we expressed that we really
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you for your advocacy. Terry, you attended the Leadership St. Pete Alumni Association event where the president spoke. Would you please give a report on that?
I know that Dr. Law doesn't like hearing all of this praise. I can tell by his body language, but I want to tell you, not only does he make us proud, for those of you who have not had a chance to hear our president speak in public, he makes all of us proud. I'm just so thrilled that he's here. And I sent him an email to that effect after that breakfast because he makes us all proud and he should make all of you proud. And I'm sure he does. One other event that was not on your list that I attended was the Palladium has formed an advisory board of about 25 people, a great cross-section of Tampa Bay. They've reached out to Tampa as well, but Andy Barnes, Hazel Huff, Al May, a really, really nice group to try to raise their level of exposure. I attended their orientation luncheon at the Palladium a couple Fridays ago, and I just want to commend Yvonne and Susan and Kathy O'Dowd and Paul Wilborn for doing that. I don't know how many of you are aware of the extensive programs that Palladium's putting on now, but they are packing the house regularly. I brought my wife was out of town, and so I brought my 21-year-old son to the side door that next Friday night for a jazz concert downstairs at the Palladium. It was great, and have another date to go as well. And so just kudos to the Palladium staff and what they're doing down there. It's really good.
Thanks for bringing that up. Would you mind mentioning about the basketball game? Because it also.
Deborah and I were at the game. Those ladies are amazing. I tell you, I'm glad I wasn't out there trying to play with them. They were losing the entire game and pulling out in one at the end. I mean, it was a really fun finish. Deborah?
Yeah, they tried to say that I wasn't at the entire game. And I was late, but I was actually sitting behind them, and none of them wanted to answer the phone as I kept calling down.
You couldn't hear the phone.
But yeah, our women's team is tough. They were behind the whole way, and then it just seemed like a couple players got loose, and they started to light up the 3-point line there a little bit. And Terry and I were like, we couldn't have stopped them if we wanted to. But no, we won it. It was a great time. We had a great time. It was good to go. We got to meet our new coach, which
She's great.
she's great.
Yeah. And her assistant is great too.
I mean, I hate to say it, I don't think we've handed enough. But she's good. I mean, she's really good. I mean, and her staff.
She represents the school.
She represents the college well, but you know what? Also, you can tell when coaches are really good coaches, and they really care about the young ladies and young men that are on their teams. And you can see it just came through on the sidelines. She knew what she was doing. That she had the respect of the players on her team, and so yeah, it was great.
Well, I'd like to have you two volunteer to take a class so you can play.
I love being a half back.
Mr. Gibbons, would you mind mentioning about the Mac Williams Award today?
Oh, it was a great event on Friday night. Our speaker was surprised Dr. Law, I think, a little bit. He was good. He almost preached the whole sermon there. Our speaker was Watson Haynes. He did a good job of inspiring young people to do well. As he's done over the years in the community, he has always been one of the few people that has always inspired young people to do well, and I think that's why he's doing so well at the Gibbs High School project as well. But we had about 4 different high schools. Dr. Oliver had a great program. We had everything from dance, poetry readings. One person on our staff there, one of the professors, wrote a book about her grandmother, and it was great. She had a reading from the book, and then we gave the awards to the young people for, of course, the success, and we also honored Dr. Mac J. Williams' family with his son being Professor Williams, because his wife couldn't make it that evening, but it was a great affair as usual. I think all the young people enjoyed it, and it was, you know, it was something that we need to continue to do as we have been doing is promoting these young people or inspiring these young people to continue to do well in the classroom.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Thank you for being here at the function representing the board. It was appreciated. One other event which I attended, which was this past Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, was the Trade Winds, the distance learning conference from across the nation was here in St. Petersburg. Let me tell you, the weather cooperated obviously, and the Trade Winds is a great place, and it left the folks very favorably impressed. Talk about some of the economic impact we have here in Pinellas County, because that conference wouldn't have been here unless we had the leadership from St. Petersburg College and our folks who are instrumental in that organization to bring that conference here. So a conference of several hundred people coming to St. Petersburg is good for the economy, and they're going to be coming back in all likelihood because they were so favorably impressed. But I want to point out Linda Wilmer, who's the associate provost at the Seminole campus. She is on their national board of directors for that organization. I mean, we have these things we don't even know about as trustees, which we can't. I mean, we can't know about all these types of things, but it's just so impressive when you see them. That here we have, you know, one of our people in the administration on the national board of directors for an organization like that, very well respected, and brings honor to our college. And then Dr. Oliver participated that afternoon in a debate. He was in a debate on a distance learning question. He represented one side of the debate. His side apparently won because they have voting beforehand and voting afterwards, and he swayed people's opinion on the debate topic. But again, it's a tribute to the college when we see our folks sessions like that. So I just want to say congratulations to the honor that all you administrators and the works that we don't even know you're doing that bring honor to our college. This has been a very, very lengthy report, but I think it's been very important because there's been a lot of activities over this past month. Do any other board members, did we cover every activity, or does anyone else have any activity or comment to make?
I got a nap somewhere in there.
Yeah. Mr. President, your comments.
I have some items. I'd like to defer mine to the President's report at the end.
Certainly.
I have a significant item to discuss around the Navy policy.
And I appreciate your work on the Navy policy. We're looking forward to that. The minutes.
So moved.
Minutes, any corrections or additions? Hearing none. Mr. Johnson's made a motion to approve. There's been a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Mr. Lang, you have a report for us.
Yes, just briefly, Mr. Chairman, you'll reach it later in your section 7E, but the two projects that are on the table for acquisition, the JWB and the Faith United Church, I think are progressing positively. The Faith United, during our due diligence period, turned up a fuel oil tank that probably the good news was that it was full, but nonetheless there had been some contamination. Contamination was enough that it would have to be reported to the DEP. But it came back as minimal as it could have possibly been after a fuller look-see, looking at the pipe that ran back to the building where the use of the oil was. And so it appears, or at least it's hopeful, that DEP will say that monitor it to make sure that it doesn't spread, but other than that, you don't have to do anything, and that we can go forward to closing, probably 60, 90 days. On the JWB issue, you will be passing or approving the contract later on this afternoon, or this morning.
We hope this morning.
I hope not this afternoon. This morning, and it's gone very smoothly. We've had good counsel from Johnson Blakely that has worked on it with us, and I feel that it's a good contract and one that you all will approve when you get to it in the evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Certainly appreciate that. Ms. Gardner, do you have a report for us?
Mr. Chairman, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being with us today. We'll now hear from our provost report, something we always enjoy, Dr. Nick Terra from the Health Center.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Would you mind, Catherine, would you mind hitting the lights back there? Thank you so much.
Well, over the past few months, I've brought to your attention some discussions about admissions, about jobs, about retention. But one of the most important things, or one of the standards that health programs are held to are pass rates on national and or state exams. And so what I have up here is our pass rates for the 2010 year and the benchmark set by our accreditation, or the diverse accreditations that we have. The success, the quality, and our accreditation standards and status is all dependent on this information. So as you can see here, that we at least meet or exceed all of the benchmarks put together by the accrediting agencies that watch or monitor these statistics. So I'd be happy to answer some questions for you if I can.
Good job.
Thank you. Well, there's a lot of good people that are behind this, and so they deserve all the kudos.
Is there any question about the funeral services, the accreditation benchmark, 60%? Well, in relation to the scores, what's the correlation there? I'm not sure I understand why that would have a 60%.
Well, that's what the accreditation agencies look at a nationwide pass rate on their exam, and they determine what they believe is the score, the minimum score that you should achieve. And so the funeral boards have, their accrediting agencies say, we expect you to at least have a minimum of 60% of your students that take our national exam to pass.
So that doesn't mean particularly that our students are...
No, our students reach 100%.
100%.
On the left is our percentages, on the right are the accreditation agency benchmarks, what they expect us to achieve at least at a minimum.
The only one we're close on here is obviously nursing. And has that gone down in recent years?
No, that has gone up in the past 2 years. We were about 8 or 9 percentage points down 2 years ago, and we've successfully been able to increase that. Some of these scores, just to give you an idea, is that some of these scores, I call them moving targets, in the sense that they're adaptive tests. And so every year that score, for example in nursing, this year that score, the benchmark is 86%. Next year that could be 88% because they look at what students score over the year and then they set that standard. Other ones are just set in stone.
Any further questions? Thank you, Dr. Victoria.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Benito, Clearwater campus. Thank you for being such a good host to us today.
I'm sure you recall that we started a veterans program here at the college. It was about a year ago this month. We got it underway on this campus. And the program was designed to help our veterans who were returning to school, in some cases to help them navigate the complex federal regulations required to receive their benefits, in some cases to provide them with some social and emotional support, and in some cases just to help them make the transition from a structured life to a less structured existence. The program's been enormously successful under leadership of Jeff Kavanaugh. We've developed a center on this site and on other campuses, and our veterans have done really well. But what I wanted to point out to you today was our Student Veterans Association, which is essentially our veterans club. One of the things that I observed with our student veterans was that they came to us with a much higher degree of leadership, of service orientation, mission orientation than almost any other group of students I've ever seen. And when I looked at the other organizations on the campus that student veterans were involved in, from our Toastmasters Club to Student Government Association, I realized that our student veterans, whereas we had started out to try to give back something to them and to try to support them, are really giving back way more to the campus than I had ever anticipated. And I can tell you that the Clearwater campus would be much diminished without this group of student veterans that we have on campus today.
Any questions for Dr. Micatelli? Thank you. We appreciate that report. Dr. White from the St. Pete Gibbs campus.
Good morning. Here's the number, 4,104 mathematics students at the St. Petersburg Gibbs campus, where we continue to infuse the community with future scientists, doctors, bankers, and others practiced in critical thinking. Meanwhile, this current semester, we've had 33.9% growth in remedial math over this time last year, spring of last year. The 4,104 number comes from fall 2010. The department delivers instruction in several different modalities, and I want to tell you that this department in particular works hard to keep a good mix and a good balance of different modalities in teaching math. We have 53 faculty, of which 16 are full-time. A little anecdotal information for you today. When asked to highlight a program, the math department will tell you about My Bridge to Success as their new initiative. Even though that initiative crosses other disciplines as well in terms of having students who only need a few areas of remediation to target those and get them through the remedial program faster, they've taken this on as their own, and they partner with the communications department as well as with the staff and the learning support commons to make it all work right. About some of our faculty, Daryl Schrader, one of our retirees, continues to teach for us as an adjunct. He's very involved in the community. Just a snapshot here, he writes a monthly column on astronomy for the St. Petersburg Times, and he's been doing that since 1990. He also guest lectures at the Science Center in Pinellas County. Dr. Carol Weideman received the Innovative Pedagogical Approach to Teaching and Learning Award for NISI. This was for her adaptation of the statistics course to nursing students, so that when nursing students take statistics, they are getting relevance, something that they can use and relate to in their chosen field. Professor Jim Rutledge is one of 6 CETL faculty college-wide. That's the Center of Excellence for Teaching and Learning. They call them faculty associates. He has embraced this role enthusiastically. He champions CETL on the St. Petersburg Gibbs campus. He's inspiring his colleagues to participate in workshops and in faculty mentoring. He is also, Jim Rutledge, the founding editor of JOLT. That's the Journal of Online Learning and Teaching. It started in 2005 with only 5 invited papers. In 2010, they received 276 manuscripts, from which they selected 75 for publication. JOLT is an online journal, and it attracts authors and readers from 186 different countries and territories. Academic Chair Tyrone Clinton shares a story about one of his former students, Justin Lashley. Justin performed at the A level. He now tutors in the Learning Support Commons and helps with My Bridge to Success. Meanwhile, Justin's AA degree and some biology coursework that he's accomplished has him well on his way to his dream, which is to get a BS degree in industrial engineering with a certificate in biomedical engineering from the University of South Florida. And finally, at St. Pete Gibbs, math counts in many more ways than one. The St. Petersburg Gibbs Math Department has for 6 years and continues to have a team in Relay for Life, the American Cancer Society event. Over the past 6 years, that has been led passionately by Professors Karen Estes and David Allen. They've recently turned that leadership over to our own Professor Emeritus, Judy Frazier. Over the last 6 years, they've accumulated over $20,000 in donations, and they have a big goal for this year. They want to get all the way to $40,000. So if you want to come to the St. Pete Gibbs track on April 1st, you can find the Math Counts relay team around the first corner on the track. Big thank yous to Academic Chair Tyrone Clinton and to Dean Sharon Griggs for leading this very special math department. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. And, yes, Mr. Johnson.
Karen, you commented that, if I heard you correctly, that you had an increase in remedial math of 33%. Is there any particular reason for that? Is it just the students aren't coming to you adequately prepared?
I'm not able to cite reasons for that that I can support with data. But we just know that it's a phenomenon that we're experiencing college-wide in the remedial area.
Probably just a lot more students, period.
A lot more students, and they're coming to us more often for help, I think, as well.
Maybe a bigger delay between high school and college too, probably enters into
I
it.
think when you see the people who are losing their jobs and coming back to school, they're often people who perhaps didn't take advantage of college when they first left. They've been out of school for a while. When we assess them, you know, even if they knew it, they may have forgotten part of it. So it's not particularly surprising as we expand our outreach to find people who need that help.
Even a very bright math student, if you have 6 years between high school and college, you need remediation to just help you get back into it.
I know I would.
Yeah, I think we all, but it's not particularly the high school students coming in.
It's some of that as well. We have high school students who come to us and are surprised that the coursework that they took did not prepare them like they thought it would when they get to us.
But
We hear those stories anecdotally.
Just to link things together, that's the value of testing 500 students at Gibbs High School. They're much more likely to get into the right high school courses that will prepare them to be ready when they get to us. And that's as exciting a prospect of cutting remediation as anything we've done. I see Mr. Gibbs.
I have a question, Mr. President, and it's not more geared towards you answering Dr. White, and that's Dr. White, it's just because I remember a while ago when Lawrence Hafner took over the St. Gibbs campus, we moved out, I think we had a math lab or something, a lab downstairs in one of those buildings. Now it's like
It's merged.
it's merged, but it's much smaller. I guess with the focus on STEM and all these other things, math is a critical subject for all of our students, whether they're coming out of high school or coming from the workforce or coming back to college as a mother, father, whoever. We should put more of an emphasis on making sure I just think that this is one of those critical areas that you cannot survive in college without being successful in math. I think we should put more of an emphasis on the labs and making sure that, kind of what you did in Tallahassee, again, if we have the space, I don't know how we reconfigure it, but I think that's a critical point. And we had that on the campus before, and I'm sure Dr. White has thought about trying to figure out how to do it, but I think that space we could utilize a little bit better for something like that.
Watch that. We have our budget workshop Friday. I've already previewed the requests, and there's going to be a very strong emphasis in that class support. Let me indicate this bridge to success approach, where you really rifle shot the individual's needs. It's the latest and greatest thinking, so that if we went back to school, we don't have to sit for 16 weeks and learn stuff that we already know. We just figure out what is it that we really need to get back on step, things that you may have learned and you just, and it moves people through much faster. It's a very exciting prospect for
I
healthy
don't know
adults.
if I heard at the conference we were at,
Yeah.
that they're testing out of, you take go take a few tutorial programs and then you can test out of it.
And that's, the whole immersion of that, that's right. Really make an assessment, and I'm very excited about the prospects for us building on this one, so thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Thank you, Dr. White.
One thing which Mr. Gibbons said concerning the STEM, and we had this conversation when we were up in D.C., is that Dr. Law, I would hope the college looks, as we constantly get challenged to beef up the engineering component of higher education, to see what we should do at St. Petersburg College in this regard, whether it be in our 2-year program, whether it be certificates, whether it be a 4-year program, but also measure it up to where the jobs are. And are the jobs here locally to support something like that? Because we constantly get told we have this need to increase in this area of education, but we have to make sure that if we're doing that, there are local jobs for these folks to get. So I'm not sure how that can be done. You certainly know way better than I would, but if you can take on that as a potential board challenge here, because I think, like Mr. Gibbons brought up, is we're constantly, we at least need an answer as policymakers as to why we should be doing it. If we're not doing it, why we're not doing it. And we really don't have an answer right now because there's no substantive base of knowledge there that we have. So we would appreciate that. Also, Kim, I would appreciate it. I don't want to add more work to you, But if the comments which Dr. White made, which reference each of those faculty members, if a transcription of those comments can be made and sent to each faculty member, that they were mentioned at the board in a very positive way, I certainly would appreciate that, because I think they would enjoy hearing what was said about them. So if you can get that from the minutes with a cover letter from the board that we're proud of their action, and that they were mentioned at the board, I think all the board members would concur that'd be a nice thing to do.
Mr. Vergara, I missed something really quick. The meeting that Mr. Brett attended at the lady, if they would let the whole board know, because I would like to know, or at least know.
That's good. You heard that, Kim?
Meeting that Mr. Brett
The Palladium meetings, you can just let us know. Dr. Mahoney, how are you doing?
Good, thank you very much.
Good to see you again with us.
Good to see you too. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees, Dr. Law, colleagues. This morning, I'm going to...
You brought a slide with you
Okay,
this time.
Yes. I'm going to update you on some items that you previously asked to hear from FGO about. In reference to FRS, faculty are clearly opposed to cuts in this area. However, we wanted to wait until the recent budget announcement from the governor to further discuss the issue at our next meeting in March. So now that that has occurred, we will discuss the issue at our meeting in March.
Dr. Mahoney, may I interrupt you on this one? Because I sat through 4 hours of the Senate hearing on Friday on the pension reform bill. And let me, and this is something obviously I have an interest in because of the office I head up. But I heard nowhere in the legislature, in our 2 days up there as a clerk, anyone saying that the governor's bill is going to be their starting point. And I don't mean the conventional wisdom of yesterday changes today, but I've heard no one mention that as a starting point. The Senate bill, which has just been introduced by Senator Ring, who's a Democrat from Broward County, but he's chairman of the committee. Apparently, all the conventional wisdom, and I got this from good sources, that the Senate leadership is firmly behind his bill. And his bill retains drop. His bill does eliminate the defined benefit plan for any new employee hired as of July 1st. It retains the class schedule. There's different classes of senior management, which some of our senior administrators are affected by. It retains the retirement age as it currently exists. It does change and calls for an employee contribution. And the way it was explained in the 4-hour committee meeting was that the employee contribution will not be determined by his committee, but by rather the budget committee, which is J.D. Alexander's committee. I can tell you, though, the tone was that it would be much more moderate than what the governor was suggesting. The governor was suggesting 5%. They couldn't guarantee anything there, but you could tell by the overall feeling of the bill that it would be much more moderate in nature, probably in the area of 2%. So I just want to give you that update. Apparently, the Senate's really taking the lead on this issue. The House has not come out with their own bill. I think they're really waiting to see how the Senate bill is received and then taking the temperature of that, and then the House will come up with its bill. But nowhere, and I wouldn't spend a lot of time, getting up in arms about the governor's bill, because from what I saw, no one was taking that as a starting point for this legislation. Dr. Law, have you heard anything different?
I have no more updated information.
But it was, and Senator Ring indicated several times that he has the backing indirectly of the Senate leadership, which is quite important on this. So, I mean, that bill is taken very seriously. So I would look at what Senator Ring is offering and really analyze that, because that's probably the starting point for the pension reform. And that affects all of you in this room, so that's the update. And as you know, in Tallahassee, and I really can't emphasize enough, what's current today is totally different tomorrow. But that's what's current as of this past Friday. But it did seem, and the good part is that you want the key person. Who's the key person carrying this bill, and do they speak for reality? And in the Senate, this is the case right now with Senator Ring. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that was an update.
I appreciate it. It's something I can take back. Thank you. And we do appreciate all of the hard work and support, both at the state and federal level, on this and all of the budget issues. Thank you. And in December, heightened evaluation criteria for the K through 12 teachers and asked about our confidence in our own evaluation procedures. So that brings us to our faculty evaluation procedures. I am here to tell you that we are very confident in our evaluation procedures as they are today. And listed here are some of the many criteria that are part of our faculty members' yearly evaluation. The SSI is where the students have an opportunity to assess the strengths and areas for improvement of their instructor, the student's instructor. This online form was developed as a collaborative effort between the faculty, staff, and administrators. And so far, so good. It seems to be working fairly well. Also looked at is the faculty members' grade distribution. Basically to ensure that an individual isn't giving all A's or all F's, because that probably indicates that there's some type of an issue.
Sure.
Duties outside the classroom are important here at SPC. Our faculty members participate on committees, in community activities, and student activities, which can also lead into working well with others. It is imperative as a faculty member here at SPC that in order to have effective committees and successful activities, that we work well with each other. The evaluation will also show strengths of the faculty member as well as areas of improvement. This can be noted by the observation component. For faculty who have obtained continuing contract status, the dean will observe that faculty member every other year. In the interim year, the observation will be done by a peer. The peer observation and accompanying form were developed this year by FGO in collaboration with administrators. We believe that our current evaluation, standards are very high and have the utmost confidence that they would weather any storm. Thank you.
Does anyone have a question? Yes, Mr. Johnston.
I have a question, and it's because, as I asked you before, I get direct input at home on various questions, and it's the behavior of the students. And from my input, in my wife's class, sometimes students, they'll pull on a laptop and start doing something differently than the instructional staff wants them to do, where they aren't paying attention. And it strikes me that the students are allowed in some classes to have different behavior tendencies. Because I think my wife is pretty strict, and in a speech in there, they're supposed to listen. And if students are acting or feel they can act that way in her class, and she won't permit it, she'll go to hit the road if they're going to do that, then somehow the students may be allowed to act that way in other classes, which I wouldn't think would be helpful to any teacher. And I don't know whether that's something that you know, it seems like college-wide we need some kind of standard of what we expect out of the students.
We do have standards of conduct that students are supposed to adhere to, and I would imagine most of the instructors attempt to have their students adhere to those standards. As far as use of laptops, let's say, in the classroom, since we mentioned that, I allow my students to use laptops, and I specifically do ask them to use it only for class purposes. It's probably difficult to police every student, but we do try. I know most of us do try. We do expect them to adhere to the standards of conduct. If they're not, then there are disciplinary measures that we can take.
Right. Well, the only reason I bring it up is because I listen to these complaints. Well, it's happening, and the way I draw it is that it's happening in these classes that have to be tolerated in other classes, or it wouldn't be happening. And somehow or other, whatever the student standards are, we ought to try to enforce that all faculty, not enforce, but encourage all faculty to set place that the students would know what is expected of them?
We do have that as part of our syllabus addenda. It is part of the standards of conduct that all the students are expected to know. And I would imagine most instructors probably also say that out loud on the first day of class or in some kind of message for online classes. So it's out there. So the policing part is then, of course, the individual instructors to police what's already out there. But it is available.
Thank you, Dr. Mahoney, for being with us today. It's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
And we appreciate the good work you do with the SPO.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Law, you have the next item, which is Roman numeral 7, the calculating completion rates.
Yes, I wanted to, while we were together in Washington and on several occasions at this board, I know we have discussed the focus on completion. And again, this is a pretty sophisticated board. People have asked questions. Mr. Johnson in particular has raised this issue. We want to start the ball rolling on what's the right way to do this. Let me share. Let's go ahead and Kay and Lee are going to make a presentation. But the numbers that are being presented nationally, I think, are exactly the wrong numbers. In an effort to have comparability across all kinds of institutions, the numbers that are reported nationally are first-time, full-time students. First time in college, 18-year-olds going to school full-time. And I think everybody on this board recognizes, for us, that's a very small part of our population, the number of students who go first-time, full-time. So I've asked Kay and Jesse and Lee to start identifying a framework that we will report to you on completion, and we want to just walk you through the framework today, okay? So that you have expectations of what we're doing and measuring that. Okay, go ahead.
Morning. Members of the board. Thanks for allowing us to continue our conversation on student success. As you recall, a couple months ago, we were talking about our student achievement and how we really were focusing on student as our priority, and that we really wanted to make sure that they were achieving the outcomes that we were setting forth. And part of that, through some of your conversation with the retreat, you were talking about completion rates, and as Dr. Law just mentioned, in the national agenda, when you are looking at completion rates and looking at them for every institution across the country. And we thought that it was really important for us to start measuring ours, and that was part of our whole conversation with this whole student achievement. And what we really need to do is kind of define who our students are. And today you've talked about a variety of students. You've talked about dual enrolled students, you've talked about returning students, the ones that are taking remedial math. And each of those are going to have probably a different time to degree. And so we wanted to have a common understanding of what those definitions would be. And then as we go through with this completion agenda, we want to make sure that we align our data reporting systems that are tracking these students in a way that we can actually measure their achievement, look at avenues in which they're achieving their success and kind of measuring them on a semester basis. So we'll have them in different kinds of cohorts depending on what categories they are. And then once we kind of get this all down for the credit students, we really want to start implementing this for our non-credit students too. So Jesse and Lee are going to talk to you about the categories that we've defined for the students and some of our measures of assessment.
This is pretty much what Kay just talked about. Yeah. All right, so when you think about the students that are here on campus today, there's basically two groups of students. You've got your brand new students, their first time here on campus, and you have returning students. We're trying to break it down as simply as possible to begin with. And this graphic will lay out what we're going to talk about today, just real quickly. We have basically 4 categories for our new students. We've got 3 categories for returning students, and all of that together builds into our credit student population, and that's what we're going to focus on today. When you think about our new students, we're talking about what bucket of these 4 buckets do they fall in the very first day they're here. And we've come up with 4 different areas. The first is the high school student who is currently enrolled in high school, but is also taking classes here at the college. And these would be your dual enrolled, your early college, collegiate high school, those types of students. Next, we've got our first time in college students, the traditional FTIC group that you guys have been hearing about since this fall. Those are the very first time they've ever been here college campus. But next, we have our lower division transfer students. This is the very first time they've been at St. Petersburg College, but they're transferring from another institution, and they're coming in, and they're in a lower division program. Then we have the exact same group, but at the upper division. It's their very first time at St. Petersburg College, but they're coming in to one of the upper division programs, say a vet tech student who's completed a statewide vet tech AS degree program, but is coming now to our bachelor's of applied science and veterinary technology. Then our other group of students, who we're looking at who's here today, are returning students. This is a variable that will be defined each term that a student returns to SPC. And there's three groups. The first one would be students that are returning to SPC and they're again in high school and taking college classes. They're still a dual enrolled student, they're still an early college student their next term that they're here. The second group are students returning to SPC and they are now enrolled in lower division programs. And the third group is that they're returning to us, but they're in upper division programs. So these are categories that will change over time, and each term they could be different, and we hope to see a high school student become a lower division student, and then again become an upper division student, and maybe graduate 3 or 4 times with different certificates and degrees along the way.
So now that we've kind of established what our groups are, what our budget's about, now how do we measure it? What measures do we come about? How do we assess progress over time? How do we look at what we can focus on in terms of targets and moving that needle forward? So we're going to take our entering student cohort, and we're going to reestablish one each fall term, similar to what we've been doing in the presentations Pat Bernard's been providing you over the last couple of terms. And then for each student category that we mentioned, we're going to look at retention progression rates. So we're going to compare fall to fall, and then the following fall for that same cohort over time and see how they progress through the system. We're going to look at completion rates, specifically in a couple different groups. We're going to look at 2-year, we're going to look at 4-year, and we're going to look at 6-year for each of those cohorts over time. And then we're going to look at time to degree rates, the number of terms to complete. So we'll look at a consecutive number of terms from the time they started that first day when they walked in the door till that time that they actually graduate. And we'll look at some average numbers for graduation cohorts.
How are we establishing up front what the student is trying to achieve? Because I think this has been a great problem where you have a student who comes in and we ask them, well, do you want to get an AA degree? Oh, yeah, sure, that sounds good. And really what they want is to take 3 or 4 courses to maybe get that promotion at their job. And so they take those 3 or 4 courses, they get promoted, they leave without any certificate, and they really, yeah, maybe it'd be nice to get an AA, and we pigeonhole them that way, but really they're not doing that. I mean, and they have, you know, that may be a long-term goal when the kids get a little older or whatever, but so how are we making sure that what they want up front is the correct measurement?
That's an excellent question.
Can I follow up on that same question? We're being judged. The first time you and I heard this was a lady from the Gates Foundation that spoke at one of the conferences we were at.
Highly critical.
Highly critical of the junior college system because their completion rate was nil in comparison to the university system. They were looking at colleges. And there has to be a way that we can do a better job in preparing our data so that our completion rate is on the same basis as the universities, because that's how they were judging us. And I've heard it from legislators too, say, well, we're wasting our money because our students are not completing. Well, there has to be a way. If I take a course from corporate training, and I see Jim Connolly was back there, I'm only going in and out, and I don't want to be put in a pool for completion because I'm certainly there to take 1 or 2 courses and be gone again. And that was the problem, was we were being judged, and I think judged unfairly by the data we were submitting. We wanted to be sure that the data that we're submitting is compatible to what everybody is looking at and how they're judging people.
Well, if I could, let me answer that in two parts. And let me go to our next slide, which actually is a great segue for your question, and talk a little bit about why that's the issue. It's not the data that's the problem that we're submitting. It's that the measures that the federal government has chosen to use. And they're very biased towards what they consider a traditional student, which is that student going to the University of Florida, walking in the first day, just finished high school, 18 years old, comes to the University of Florida, they're going to go full-time and they're going to finish. That's not our student. That's never been our student. That's the data that they're looking at, and that's why we don't compare well when we compare federal data, the IPEDS data, which you probably looked over the last couple weeks, both in Tallahassee and in Washington. And those are the questions you're getting asked. Why does your IPEDS data look different? Well, it's because it doesn't match our student population. They're only looking at full-time students. Two-thirds of our students are part-time. They're only looking at a limited graduation period. For their 2-year degrees, for an AA, they're only looking at 3 years. And they just recently, last year, switched to a 4-year window. Well, if our students are going part-time, it's highly unlikely they're going to finish a 2-year degree in either 3 or 4 years. So they're not even shown in the numbers that you're looking at. When we compared this, we looked at first time in college. We had that presentation that Pat did, and we looked at our fall numbers. And we had about, I think it was like 11.2% of our population was first time in college. That's all we've been looking at in those presentations. Well, when I pull out the part-timers to that number, it's really only 5.5% that are full-time first in college. So, those numbers you're looking at when you're saying you guys aren't doing good compared to the universities, they're only looking at 5.5% of our entire population.
How do we convey that to the people in Washington or wherever the government is that are using these numbers against us?
Well, I think the first step is the path that Dr. Law is leading us on, and that is to create our system, to do the measures that we just talked about, so we can say, yeah, well, we can compare. You want to compare us to the universities? Here's our 5.5% of the population, and you're right, that's how it compares. But let's look at all the other aspects of our population. Let's look at those high school dual enrolled students. Let's look at our workforce students. Let's look at our certificate students. The second part of the question was, how do we define success? And what's done, we don't have any adult ed classes here at St. Petersburg College. That's handled by Pinellas County Schools. But they have an elaborate system that they measure adult education here in the state of Florida. Each student actually comes in and presents goals. One of the goals is completing their high school certificate. Another goal might be to focus in a specific area of weaknesses. So literally every student that goes into an adult ed program has a different outcome that they're looking at, and that's how they establish success. But you're right, our students are very varied. One of the things that we're trying to do is tie credentialing to the various levels. So if a student is coming in and taking 4 or 5 classes, and that's happening over and over in a specific AA program, we're working with that administration to say, hey, maybe that should be a certificate. Maybe we can get credit for them taking those 4 or 5 classes all the time and get some credit for the college that we're graduating them with that certificate.
Here's the, Mr. Johnson, the reality is, I've already said this, we're not, our ability to change this IPEDS is the reporting that all colleges do for federal aid and everything else. The reality, though, I think is, we have to know what is it we would do, what would we propose as the alternative? And we've not been very good at doing that, we being community colleges. We've been silent on that issue for the most part. Well, if that's the wrong one, what's the right one? And then the dialogue dissipates. My intention is for us to start right here with this board and with this college saying, what are our expectations for students first time? What can we do? How do students progress through here when they're doing well? Where do we have to focus our energies? So that's the buckets that you see us doing. Our next goal will be we can go back and we can take the students who entered in August of '06, we can go back 4 years, put them in those buckets and see what happened to them. We can describe to you what really took place with students who came in the fall '06 semester. What were the completion rates? What were the dropout rates? And then we should start measuring that going forward. Okay, what is it that we expect to happen each year? That's our effort. But using the iPads data is a losing strategy. You know it, I know it. But it's not going to change. If we just wait for the change, it won't happen. Mr. Parker, sorry.
No. First of all, you present very well. Thank you for your comments. We start measuring these people, these students, before remediation or after remediation?
Well, that's the other, in fact, that's the other key point. You could be full-time and need a year's worth of remediation, too.
So when do they get started?
First time in college. Click, you're in, we start counting.
Wow. Well, that's a big...
2/3 of our students need remediation. I mean, but again, it all gets washed out because you're trying to find a single completion number.
And Dr. Law, can you also comment, and I appreciate all Mr. Johnson said, but my original question, how do we know what the students try to achieve so we can put them in the right category?
Yeah, we're only going to get so good at that. It's self-reported data. You know, people have been conditioned to say, yeah, I want a degree, that sort of thing. One of our major efforts that Vice President Williams has really moved forward is a much more robust orientation, where we actually sit down with students, and I think we have a much better chance of engaging them about the range of possibilities. Now, it's just coming out over the horizon, but that's our only hope, is to have a better initial engagement with students, to have them better understand the range of options. They're just giving the one option that sounds the most palatable, is my guess. So I think there's some benefits to that piece as it works. Tanya, just briefly, we're going to do, what 1,500 students in August?
About 1,500 students this summer for the fall term. These are our students who are coming in needing the 2 or more remedial courses.
So
and then we plan to expand it out in a year or so to all new students to have a robust orientation, which will include a career piece.
Pilot project on
Dr. Law, when we get this worked out and worked all the bugs out of it, I wonder if we sent this material to whoever, and especially to Mrs. Biden, and said, look, you're an advocate for the community college system. Good idea. Will you help us, because our students are not the same as the university students, and quit trying to compare us to them. Because our population is different. They need, as you pointed out, they need remedial. They may take a year to remedial, then 4 years.
Yeah.
Their completion rate is on target for 5 years because that's what they needed. But I think we're being judged improperly and unfairly. This is what bothers me, because you have funding and legislation that's all tied to this, and maybe even the Pell Grant will be tied to it. I don't know what we could do when they're finally done, but it makes us look bad, and we're not bad. We shouldn't look bad, because we're doing what we think our assignment is, but the world doesn't understand that.
Well,
Do you think that our high schools aren't preparing these kids?
Well, I think there's always going to be some of that. And again, we talked about part of the work that we do with Gibbs is to send a signal as to what they're supposed to be learning in high
It's not
school.
only kids.
Well, we know that the FCAT confuses people. They believe if they pass the FCAT, they're ready for college, and those are 2 very different things. So that we have a gap. Mr. Johnson, I think we have a framework here that we're going to flesh out. We're going to continue to come back to the board to show you the numbers and everything else. But then I think we should be making presentations nationally and saying, this is how we decided to measure it, and watch how fast people get behind it.
I'd love to see us be able to respond to the lady from the Gates Foundation that talked about this when Ken and I were in that particular session a couple of years ago, and she was just somewhat critical. You know, the community college system is failure because they don't have the completion rate. Well, we can't compare with those statistics. Our students aren't near as prepared to go in, or they would probably go on to a university. That's where they're coming to us in some cases. And then our students are so diversified. And that story is not being told, and I'd just like to find a way to tell that story.
Mr. Brett?
Dr. Law, have you had any conversations with any of your fellow community college presidents about this topic? any type of a consolidated effort to try to move this forward?
The answer to your question is I have not, okay? It may be happening away from me, but I'm
I mean, it's clearly
I'm
a
kind of a
concern.
one-trick pony on this. This is
Yeah.
my area of interest and expertise.
It's got to be a concern of all of them out there, I would think.
Yes, it is.
And I'm not suggesting that we collaborate. I think, I like your idea of taking it and running with it, but I've got to believe that we're not the only institution in the state of Florida worrying about it.
Your perception is right. There are a lot of self-regarding institutions that are trying to figure out what is the right metric to use to make the case that we want to make. And collecting data, though, I mean, that you do, you've got to do it. I have to say, I think self-regarding institutions that we know the capacity like ours need to be in the front. If the numbers aren't exactly what we want, well, then we'll roll up our sleeves and get them what we want. But if we don't do it, we're at the mercy of others defining us, and I just find that to be unacceptable. I just don't want to do that. So this is our best effort. We'll continue to work with you on how to lay out. I think if you go back to this, slide, the graphic slide, just go backwards. Let us run with, see those groups, let us run with those groups. Let's try to describe what happens to each of these groups. And then we can have a much more informed discussion rather than tried to push them yesterday. He just said, be careful, making sure everybody fits in a group. It takes a little more sophistication than I'm willing to recognize. So give us just a little, because you have to do it.
We have tremendous amounts of data. It's a matter of working with technology to get everybody in the right buckets. And
Jesse,
we're certainly capable of doing that. We need some time to get those pieces.
These guys are good.
We've successfully hijacked your presentation. Let's get back to finishing up your.
Sure. We just had kind of a summary, and that kind of is the basic. We're just starting. We're building blocks. This will give us the foundation to really understand the completion agenda from our perspective and how we can push that data forward. And we'll be able to slice and dice. You made a comment about the remedial or developmental students. We'll be able to pull them out and see if they look different than non-remedial students and what kind of progression. You know, by slicing and dicing, we'll kind of have the blueprint to make improvement, because we'll find out where the weaknesses are, where we can focus the energy and attention, and what we can bring up the overall rates.
Well, we appreciate what you've done, what you're doing.
The whole team.
I think what we're asking is for the ammunition to stand up when someone says in a group, well, your completion rates are not what they should be. We want to say, wait a minute, here's the data. When you break it out and compare apples to apples, our completion rate may be better than university centers. I don't know. I'd love to be able to say that.
Well,
what number would you like to see?
I mean, our students are different. Our students are working. Our students have families. Our students are not, 18 years old. They're not right out of high school.
But the people that are making these statements are not taking that into consideration.
Absolutely.
And they're not taking into consideration our students are probably starting with lower SAT scores than those entering the university system. I've seen numbers, and they're old numbers, but they stick in my mind, that our students, when they go and transfer students, go into like the University of Florida, Florida State, and we track them, they're doing just as good, if not better, than the traditional student that enrolled there as a freshman.
I want to thank you for your presentation on behalf of the board. It's a very, very relevant topic, obviously one we are tremendously interested in, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you as months go on, but thank you for the start. And Dr. Law mentioned something to me in a conversation about what the college is looking into as potential software where we can monitor student success, and instead of waiting till the end of the semester to see if the student's been successful, measuring their attendance, measuring their grades, their first grades, and see if they're doing well in 3 of their 5 courses or 4 of their 5, and if they need help in one. And I'm excited about that, so that we monitor student success. And Dr. Law, I love your term, plan for the past. That's as funny as can be. So, is there a motion to approve item E1? Motion been made by Mr. Brad, seconded by Mr. Gibbons. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
I just had a discussion, and I think Doug, your comments to me before the board meeting, I thought were perfect, because I had asked him, where are we getting the money to buy all this stuff?
Wait, we're just on disposition of surplus property.
Oh, excuse me. On that disposition, you know, we have given away computers that people restore rather than just trashing them. And I don't know whether there's any possibility of continuing that program, whether it's worthwhile or not.
Who did they just told me this week? Somebody is.
We're giving them the fast.
Who is the FAST, whatever the Ministerial Alliance Group is? They're going to get a handful of these, so we're still repurposing them as.
Right, because these computers were valuable to somebody else when we're done with them, because they're out there. Okay, great, thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. I would like to ask Ms. Ryder to come forward and do the review of the schematic plans.
This is the UPC building on the Seminole campus. And what we are doing is we are taking the existing science labs that are in there right now, which have limited capability, and we are remodeling those science labs so that they can, so that the classes and labs can be offered in them that you see listed here. I know Mr. Burke had a question about the cost per square foot on this, and it appeared to be somewhat expensive, and in fact it is, but there is a considerable amount of work going on in here. We have to redo the mechanical HVAC systems in there. We are adding a lab prep room, and we are converting another space that is a meeting space into a lab prep room. It will have all brand new casework, chem resin tops on it, so that it's about 50% of the cost that you would see if you built this in a new building.
And does this meet the needs of our science lab demand at the Seminole campus, or is there still more to do?
And I've asked Dr. Oliver to speak to that issue.
This is a big step forward, though.
It is.
Thank you. We're very grateful for this upgrade. It does allow us to offer the science classes we're currently offering more effectively, better science, real science, as well as being able to offer biology, real biology for the first time. It does not allow us to offer chemistry or microbiology or any of those upper level courses in the area. So it's still two labs on a good-sized campus. So the dean indicates that we need 2, probably 3 additional science labs at some point. This does provide us with
Just wanted to know the need.
great relief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Is there a motion to accept item E2? Motion's been made, seconded by Mr. Brett. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I will now entertain a motion that we approve item E3, and we'll have questions and discussion. E3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Motion made by Mrs. Bilirakis, seconded by Mr. Gibbons. Now time for questions. Board members?
Questions I had asked Doug, where's the money coming from? And I thought he gave me a very complete explanation. I didn't know whether the rest of you wanted to hear it or not, but I think it's important that financially we be sure that we can do the things that we're doing. I had another one.
I think it's a very relevant question, so can we take one at a time?
Sure.
Mr. Johnston? Nothing?
Yes, the first one dealt with, I believe, the church.
The church
property.
And the JWB, the
Yeah,
acquisition money.
The church property is being funded from the sale of the gym, the proceeds from the gym, which I think was specifically intended to purchase or.
100%?
Yes. Yes.
Is there any leftover money?
Yes, there is. The gym, we sold the gym for $1.9 million. And so there's money that we've been using for design and investigation, but there is some money that's been set aside if we want to do any work in the small classroom building on that site. And we've met with Dr. Vidito and his staff to take a very preliminary
Board members, any questions on the property acquisition? Now let's move to the JWB.
On the JWB building, there's a couple of things there. You recall at the beginning of the year, we set aside a contingency in anticipation of a mid-year callback, which has not happened. We don't anticipate it will. That's generated some cash that we use a very small portion of that cash to just pay the upfront portion. It's about $330,000 of down payment on JWB. Going forward from there, they are leasing, JWB is leasing the annex over in the epicenter property, and we're going to sort of a trade out. They're paying lease, and we'll pay it's just an exchange pretty much of their lease payments and us paying them for the building. We still have though, and the timing we're not.
But who are we paying?
JWB.
So they're going to take back a mortgage basically?
No.
Yes.
Wait, it just went too fast. There are 3 payments of $333,000.
Right.
That we will pay them. So $1 million in cash. The next $1.5 million will essentially be an exchange of checks until we reach the 2.3 or 2.5, whatever that number is. Okay, so we don't take it in cash, but we don't pay out in cash. So there's $1.5 million over, how many years? 8 years?
91 payments.
91 payments.
Is there any of this lease money?
But we will lease part of the JWB building.
I think that's where it is. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. JWB already rents the facility over there on 58th Street, and we get a check from them every month. We're going to turn around and pay them
For the purchase?
for the purchase, essentially with their money, after the first 3 payments that we make.
Do we end up with an unrelated business income issue?
And then we're going to lease part of the JWB building that we purchased to the National Health University.
Right, I'm sorry about that.
So there's
some cash coming in. The purchase is essentially $2.5 million, $1 million down, $200,000 a year for however.
But the lease won't cover the debt service.
Oh, no. It's a very, well, I think it's for the first floor. The JWB lease.
Checks out the debt service, and then we have the National University Health Center providing additional cash.
Okay, and so, just so I'm clear, because I like asking this question, forgive me, these will never appear on a PICO list then, for site acquisition?
I mean, I wouldn't say that we couldn't at some point put it on the PICO list if we chose to, but I don't think that there's a
This one's past us.
chance to get.
Our PICO needs are enormous.
I understand, I just want to.
No, I think this one you are buying this building.
Okay. So we've handled item number, unless anyone has any more questions, item 6, and where was the other one?
8.
8, thank you. Okay, any other questions? I had a couple questions on the teaching auditorium, because this is different than we originally were going to do. We're tearing down the building before we're going to save the building, and I understand because of the foundation, your memo did a good job explaining. But is the idea that we still have the need to build something that looks like the teaching auditorium as part of this, or would we be eliminating that? And how is that decision made? Is there a committee in here at the campus which gets together and helps decide these types of things, so we have buy-in from the stakeholders?
You mean as far as what the teaching auditorium will look like? I don't know that.
Well, even the need for a teaching auditorium.
Well, we look at our space requirements here, just the number of classrooms that we need. That's been, the space has been used regularly for classrooms, and so we just need to replace it with something.
So we will have a teaching auditorium as part of the new footprint?
Yes, it just won't look like the old.
Okay. Any other questions on any of these? The insurance, just so y'all know, I asked some questions on this, and the staff was very good about answering, because I think this is important. The insurance, apparently for our buildings through the consortium, is an all-risk type of policy. Flood, fire, wind, things that normally are excluded from most of our property insurance that we have in our commercial or residential property that we own are covered here. And the way the next to last paragraph talks about a lot of other insurances that we buy outside this scope, and those are done brokered through the consortium, so we don't have to get involved with the individual purchasing of those items. Is that answer pretty correct, what I just stated?
Yes, it is. With the exception of part of the workers' comp coverage in
For Puerto Rico.
because we're required to pay into their claims process in Puerto Rico.
And the reason I bring up these questions, because I think it shows good border oversight on the potential, what happens if there is a disaster. Are we adequately insured? And basically the answer is yes.
Yes. We have multiple levels of property coverage.
Okay. So, any other discussion? Move to vote, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. With no agency billing this time, is there a motion to accept item G, the personnel report? By Mr. Gibbons and seconded by Mr. Brett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Our public meeting is now called to order. Is there a motion to approve item H?
Second.
The motion has been made. I only have one question on this. Is this unique to this program that we're starting this? It seems like a fairly good rule, and I wondered if
It's not, we have it in nursing already, and we've had it for several years in nursing, and we're starting to see that trend as we look along to begin the institute.
Do we have it in our other health programs?
Just nursing and respiratory.
Is there consideration to expand to
Yes,
other health
yes,
programs?
yes,
Okay, I
yes.
just was
We're having
curious.
conversations.
It was very odd, we voted on one little program, but they changed like that, not little program, fourth program.
Right, each program takes a little time to catch
Okay.
up as they think through it.
Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move, and any comment from the board? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Public meeting is now adjourned. We now move into our financial report of Dr. Long.
Again, this year is shaping up really quite nicely. The revenue looks strong. We will be adding to the fund balance at the end of the year. I don't see any anomalies since we've reviewed it.
Why is there no money received from the lottery?
That's just a timing issue.
Does it come once a year?
It's supposed to come quarterly. It doesn't always
It
come
comes never quite the same. It comes
Yes.
whenever they pretty much get ready to.
Is it odd that we haven't gotten money this many months of the year?
No, I think that we've had other years that I recall where it did come.
And the state appropriation, does that pretty much come on a monthly basis?
Yes,
Monthly or quarterly?
the state appropriation.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to comment and thank
Mr. Johnston.
the explanations on the side
Excellent.
were, I think, a great improvement.
Yep.
Because you could read these and see that, okay, there's a situation here that explains it. I appreciate that.
Very well done. I think we all concur with that. Any further discussion? This is for informational purposes, involve no motion. So we'll move to curriculum, item J. Is there a motion to accept item J 1 through 3?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions? Some of these courses that we're deleting, and I'm just, are there similar courses replacing, like Introduction to Physics, the Applied Financial Accounting, and even the CAD program? I assume that, is CAD gone away? I mean, is that past its time? Is that why these programs?
A different course, different number.
A different number.
Yeah.
The state sometimes makes those changes, and so it's a matter of, we have to change the course numbering,
Okay.
so we delete the old and the.
So there are physics courses being
Yes.
offered and all that type of
Oh,
thing.
accounting, very
Very
much.
much so. Very much so.
How are
Okay.
you replacing country dance?
That one was funny.
That one just went away.
And no entries in Spain. I see all our courses on Spain have gone away. Seeing no more discussion on this very scintillating topic, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item K, and can you give a quick explanation of this, Dr. Long, because this has been a source of frustration, especially the Phil Benjamin funds not being matched.
Well, you're going to remain frustrated. I mean, the Phil Benjamin funds are not being matched. But we, on February 1st each year, we have to certify the amount that would be eligible for the match were it to take place. So February 1st each year, in past years, they would then accumulate those, and then, lo and behold, by the end of the session, they would go to the match. But again, we're you know, this college continues to raise money. Scholarship money is always valuable. There is no prospect of a match this year.
So this is an exercise in making a record, but not getting it.
We hope it's not an exercise in futility, because hopefully someday, since we have these on record, that the state will be able to match these grants. And that's why we keep submitting them, correct?
Yeah, and there was a history where, when they only picked up for a year or two,
They
they did it. They would have to float bonds to
Right.
do it. I mean, think of all the universities backed up.
How many
all the
years?
artists, hundreds of millions of dollars in match backed up. It's just not going to work. I'll get the up-to-date number, but I think that window,
Okay. You're
they may
probably
start new again or something else, but the backlog is too large right now.
Is there a motion to approve item K and L, the academic calendar? By Mr. Gibbons, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Johnston, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I want to ask Kim to distribute you had asked us, Mr. Chairman, back in August, you had sent me a request to engage on the naming policy. But somebody, are we ready? We have the EPI. I want to do the EPI first, okay?
Yes, Michael has those he can pull up.
All right. And we provided you, leave the lights on for just a second, please. Okay, just a second.
Can we have the lights again, Catherine? Thank you.
We have shown you in September.
Go ahead, I'm listening, I got it like.
I was going to say, you didn't move from the chair, Catherine.
All I want to say is we had brought you a preliminary rule to review. We took your input. We have revised that rule, and you have it in front of you. It is not subject to your consideration today. If memory serves, if you look at item part 2, B4, there was input on the president having a little more flexibility in the appointment of the committees so that we would be able to match those up with the needs. I circled item 5 to be sure that there is no doubt that you retain final authority as a board for any naming. We did add some language at 6 regarding Lisa Ratner. I don't think that's a big issue, but every so often a gallery gets named, and they should be able to do that. We will start the process, we'll take your input, but we will start the process for subsequent adoption of this rule with your input. But today is simply meant to...
This is our homework.
And then I have some follow-up on the actual naming.
I just have a quick question, Dr. Morrow. Would this include, like, we put the plaque down for Cecil at Midtown, and we should make that contiguous throughout the rest of the college?
And if I might, Mr. Chairman, that's a perfect segue because we are presenting, with your guidance, we have started to identify those areas where we should be enhancing the naming that already exists, okay? And do it, man. Okay. And you see, for instance, our beloved colleague, Senator Donna Sullivan, here at Epicenter. We will be adding his name to the exterior of the building in a way that I think commemorates the purpose much more than only a little plaque on the inside of that. And this one is ready to go, if I'm not mistaken.
It has been ordered and it is ready to go.
Okay, and then we will continue, we'll just work through the existing names, and I think I've heard from you that there are a couple that seem to be less than we want them to be, certainly Cecil Keynes, and then somehow we have to resurrect Mr. Lang's memorial, okay? We demoed that one.
Not memorial, he's still alive.
You may do it with the hole in the ground over there, since he has some sweat equity in that one. But we have, in fact, taken your guidance, and we will be bringing these to you as we work through the list, Mr. Chairman, and I hope that meets your needs.
One of the things that, and I don't want to, this is Ken Burke speaking, not the board speaking, but I think we definitely need to look at all of our past presidents of this college who have served us so well to make sure each is recognized in some fashion that's appropriate. And I know we have, we're all over the place with this. I know we have like the Lynch Auditorium, we have the Michael Bennett Library System. I know we certainly want to do something nice for Dr. Cutler. But I mean, I just think each of our college presidents, I would like to see some living memorial to them on somewhere at our college for them to be recognized. I just think that's just important. And I say that because, you know, they've given us a legacy. That's what made this college so much, is through their various leaderships. And each of them has served us so well, and I just want to make sure that we give proper recognition to the past presidents of this institution, and as using a term like you, the future past presidents of this institution who serve us well.
Mr. Chair, I think that's an excellent point. We should maybe have, I don't know, have some names brought back with some ideas maybe from Dr. Long.
That's it.
As opposed to
It's not-
us getting involved
No.
and letting him come back with some contributors, because I definitely would like to see Mr. Lang's tribute brought back and a couple other things, and we need to make sure they're appropriate.
Right.
But I think it's best done at your level.
And that's what paragraph 4 is about this
exactly.
committee. And we do have a trustee. Matter of fact, I'm going to make a suggestion too, that we may want to consider that the item number 4 say the vice chair of the board be given that duty. So it's not, so it's a set duty that the vice chair would always be the representative to the, to that
I'm going to
committee.
recommend Mr. Brett.
That's, well, and it's not only great as Mr. Brett, but it also would be
Oh, yeah,
the
vice chair,
So I mean, so it sets some type of tone to it, you know, that we know that that person has that responsibility as part of the board.
Thank you. And that's really helpful. I feel very strongly that the board never be in doubt that you are in charge of this process. We do the legwork, but in the end, you have the responsibility to bless whatever we present, and that we consider. When you're ready, Mr. Chairman, though, I do want to move the dialogue forward just a little bit. Okay? You had asked me in that very same letter to start the process of thinking how we might recognize Dr. Cutler's past contributions. I think opportunity presents itself as I have been around to all of the sites, and as we have worked very hard on our space needs, and as we have focused on our student needs, I will tell you that the most needy student support space that I am aware of exists on our St. Petersburg campus. People are doing the very best they can in a facility that is, Susan, how many, 70 years old?
Yeah.
And I would like to say that I asked Susan and our architects to think about replacing on the corner of 66th Street and 5th Avenue. We would demolish, we'll walk you through our initial thinking. It is not, I need your input, but it is not for your final discussion today, but we need to take down the wing that is closest to the name. Go ahead and fire that up if you
Do you want to look at the existing, I'm sorry.
yeah, go ahead, show the existing. We pulled some, just so you can see how, this is the neediest space we have on any of our campuses. So there's the existing building, but I like the cracks in the wall. That's
Building has character.
Fixer upper.
Even the floors don't come together.
You know,
Sure.
this is the second floor. Right? I think you see the purpose. We're only going to get so good. If you owned an 80-year-old home at some point, you would say we got to do something different. Okay? And Mr. Brett, I know you have done major work. My proposal would be that we create an iconic building on 66th Street and 5th Avenue, that we have this building, it would be approximately 45,000 square feet, that it would house a comprehensive renewal of our student services, registration, advising, counseling, support services. Go ahead and flip around. That's the corner. This is the backside. So that is the Lynch Auditorium, the music center. This is from the parking lot side. There are even some better renditions here. If we go to, I think, the next one, it would end up giving us the opportunity for something like a linear park that would allow us to have casual space and beautification kinds of space that would link the campus together so that you could come in from the front, but more likely right through this plaza that you see. Click ahead if you would. Again, artist rendition of what the inside might look like, something that, think of the space we're in now. It's a long, narrow building with offices that jut out from one side or the other. There's no student flow. There's no ambience. people are doing the very best they can in what I consider to be substandard facilities.
Dr. Law, there's, if we're going to name this, there has presently, from my history, there's been a couple names placed in Jim Henry, and I could be, and maybe Joe, you could help me. There's been a couple other names placed in here, so somewhere we ought to still
We're going to
memorize.
mention that. In fact, I think we have, do we have one that shows the quick pass? I want to see that there is, you see that we maintain the core building with the auditorium at the back and the offices in the front, so the Hendry Administration Building remains intact.
Good.
Okay, and that this then is built to the east of it on the corner. So it goes, it keeps the Lynch, it keeps the Hendry, and I think there's a moment when I'm going to recommend to you that we name this Dr. Cutler, okay? But we want to have that dialogue.
Well, I just wanted to be sure we didn't overlook a previous naming.
And then we have the Bennett libraries everywhere. Let me make my whole song and then be done. Dr. Cutler grew up on this campus. Dr. Cutler was the student body president. This is our home. This is our heritage. If we can't, I'm going to use my best efforts to get us this far. We owe it to Dr. Cutler.
And Dr. Law, one of the first exercises we went through in the beginning of this process, if you recall, from my fellow board members, was that we asked the college to go through every facility that we have and determine the history of every naming thing. So we have that list, and we're still holding that list sacred as part of this process, and that's being taken into big consideration so that nothing gets forgotten about. And so that original list, I just want to just recall that we did that for a very distinct purpose. Yes, Mr. Gibbons?
Yeah, I know we're going to keep this building. Is this building 80 years old too?
It is, it will be really just the entryway with the offices, and what's currently Dr. White's office and the Sunmax office. It would then allow us to make some enhancements around the access to the theater part, the auditorium part. Okay, so there's not really going to be much activity in there, but it would be the heritage part of our campus. So the main doorway and other things would retain.
Is there any way for us to go after some type of grant that would allow us to renovate that part portion back to its, they have those in the state,
Great suggestion, because quite frankly, you see the nice pictures. I don't know where the first dollar was coming from yet. But that's much my style, is to figure out what we want to do and then roll up our sleeves and figure out how to get it done. It is important that we keep the heritage of this building, I think, and keep the entryway and the frame and the portal. But trying to make that the centerpiece of our services that day has come and gone.
I understand that. I just want to make sure that keeping this, because you can always build something that looks like you put the name back on the building. Instead of keeping an 80-year-old building intact, trying to renovate it. We're going to do this other thing on the corner. Let's just figure out how to.
I'll take that up. As you see, this one, by the way, also shows that it will be, there'll be walkways between these. So we'll take what is that long connected building and break it apart so that we can then modularize our approach to the events in each case. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get started. It's going to take us, if we start tomorrow, it could take us several years to get this accomplished. But with your guidance, we're going to continue to flesh this out. It's all new to the people at St. Pete campus. Karen is ready to speak on this. The needs are pronounced, but we need to go slowly and let the ownership on campus take over as to what goes in this building and exactly where and how much it's worth. Mr. Chairman,
Thank you for your help on this topic. Board members, do you have any questions of Dr. Law? Excellently handled. Do you have anything more to your president's report, sir?
I wanted to hand out one other thing. I did, in fact, have occasion, in addition to the other meetings that we were doing, go to the St. Pete Times board. And I had a long conversation yesterday and another meeting with reporters today. So the visibility of the college is picking up as we speak as the legislative session starts. Just wanted you to have what I handed out to the St. Pete Times board.
Would you also mention back meeting last Wednesday?
I am on the board of Workforce Law Incorporated, and let you find folks in in Washington to get back. It is going to be very helpful to us to plug into the workforce development efforts at the state level. I learned a great deal about how we might position ourselves to actually be in line for additional funding through our local workforce board. So I'm pretty excited about that piece.
All right.
Anything else for the good of the cause? I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.